They called me a beggar in front of 200 guests. Security took my arm. My mother looked away. My father smirked. I opened my banking app and tapped one button. The music stopped. The lights dimmed. And my family learned who signed every check tonight. I'm Jenna, 28, from Denver, Colorado. If true stories of quiet people taking powerful revenge hit you like a punch to the gut, tap like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe. Every week we stand up to bullies. Together. I never thought my own name would sound ugly coming from my father's mouth. But when he said it, stretched thin with contempt, everything in me went cold. His voice filled the ballroom, smooth and sharp like a knife sliding across crystal. "Get this beggar out," he said to the manager, to the staff, to anyone who would obey. He did not look at me when he said it. He looked at the men he respected. Men with suits like his, watches like his, smiles like his. He looked at the chandeliers and the head table and the camera flashes. He looked at the night as if it belonged to him. It didn't. The room smelled like money. Scented florals, expensive perfume, polished wood, the faint sugar of the dessert table. The band played a safe, bright jazz set, and the ice sculpture bled in slow motion under the lights. Tall cousins I hadn't seen in years laughed like television characters. An aunt touched my arm and then remembered not to. She pulled back as if I'd stain her dress. "Do you even have an invitation?" my cousin Daniel said. He said it gently, like a teacher correcting a child. He had always been good at sounding kind while being cruel. He leaned close enough that I could see the pattern on his tie, little golden squares that caught the light and winked. "These seats are reserved. Family only, family only." I chewed those words like glass. My mother's eyes did not meet mine. It was a skill she had mastered when I was 13 and said I didn't want to be part of the family landscaping business anymore. I wanted to code, to work in the back room with dusty servers and hard drives that hummed like sleeping animals. My father laughed. My mother folded napkins. Daniel shrugged. "A phase," he said. Only it wasn't. When I got a job doing basic IT at a tiny hotel, my father stopped coming home for dinner on time. He would stay late at the office and then arrive with heavy steps that meant a fight. I learned to slip out before the door opened. I learned the sound of anger and how to dodge it. I learned that silence is a shield if you hold it right. The hotel was old and full of problems. Leaking pipes, thin walls. The internet died twice a day, but the owners trusted me because I showed up and because I fixed things without talking too much. I learned their systems, their vendors, their season. I watched the books from a distance. I saw how they survived on events, weddings, parties, corporate dinners. I learned that everyone smiles for a night that isn't theirs, and everyone pays for a night they won't remember. I learned that venues live on thin margins until they don't. You could say this story started when my father called me a beggar. But that night was the last page of a slow book. It started when I was 19, and he said I was embarrassing him. It started when my mother said, "Please don't upset your father," and set a plate on the counter like a peace offering. It started when I learned to cook in an empty apartment because family dinners were a minefield and I had to eat. It started when I found a landlord who didn't ask questions as long as I paid on time. By 22, I was tired of working for men who tweaked numbers and smiled. I kept doing my job. I kept saving. I learned about contracts and about shell companies. I learned that a venue is an engine, and once you understand the engine, you can build a better one. I didn't sleep much. Sometimes I fell asleep at my desk and woke up with keyboard marks on my face. I left notes to myself in the middle of the night. Get a liquor license consultant. Talk to insurance about event riders. Ask Marco how he handles overtime on Fridays. I was a ghost in my own life, moving from room to room, collecting keys. When the old hotel finally gave up, when the owner said he was done, when he lifted a hand and said, "You want it? Take it off my hands if you can make the numbers work." I already had the numbers. I had them in files and spreadsheets in my blood. I smiled the smallest smile. I made a plan. I built a company with a quiet name. The kind of name that does not look like anything if you are not looking closely. I met people who could do things I couldn't. A chef who hated waste and loved fire. A coordinator who could hold 200 moving parts in her head like birds. A bookkeeper who knew how to keep a thing straight even when everyone else tried to bend it. We worked. We made small weddings smooth and sad anniversaries tender, and corporate events efficient and soulless. because that is what they wanted. We learned how to listen without asking anything back. On paper, I was not there. I learned that being invisible is a power. It keeps you safe. It keeps your plans clean. So when the family called an event company for a big celebration, a party that would make my father look important, and my mother look perfect, and my cousins look wealthy, they ended up with us. They had no idea. The coordinator met them. She presented menus. She wrote down their requests. She smiled. She kept her face smooth while my father made a few jokes about keeping costs down. She nodded while my mother asked, "Can we hide the buffet for the second half so it looks more elegant?" She wrote everything and then brought it back to me. "Is this your people?" she asked quietly, sliding the folder across my desk. Her eyes were steady. She had been with me long enough to know better than to ask in front of others. "Yes," I said, and felt the ground of my life tilt. "They don't know it's me. We're taking it?" "Yes," I said. "We're taking it." She nodded as if she understood all of it, and maybe she did. "Full package?" "Full," I said. "Everything under our control." The months rolled forward like a train. We booked the room, hired the band, papered the walls with contract clauses, and built the night my parents wanted. My father wanted gold. My mother wanted glass. My cousins wanted Instagram. I wanted something else. The night came. I ironed a simple dress shirt, clean and plain. I parked a little distance away. I watched guests spill out of black cars like coins from a broken box. I walked inside at the end of cocktail hour, when people were warm and loud and kind if they recognized you. No one recognized me. My face was a family face with a serial number filed off. I took a breath and walked toward the cake. The icing was so smooth it reflected light like water. That's when Daniel saw me. His eyebrows lifted and fell. He smiled like he was doing me a favor. "Hey," he said. You shouldn't be up here. Family only." "I am family," I said quietly. He laughed. "Come on." My father turned and saw me. He did not bother with a smile. He lifted a hand and snapped for the manager. "This one," he said. "Get this beggar out." The manager looked at me and then looked at him. He had been briefed that the family would be difficult. He had been told to follow my coordinator's lead. He had been told nothing about me. A small circle formed. People love circles. They love the warmth of a scene. Security stepped in. Their hands were firm but not cruel. "We can escort you outside," one said. He was young. He wore new shoes. His voice was neutral. He was doing his job. I met my mother's eyes for half a second. She looked away, almost graceful. I felt my pulse climb into my throat. I tasted metal. I knew the route out of this building better than anyone in it, and I knew that I was done leaving by the back door. "Okay," I said softly. "Let's step outside," but I didn't head to the curb. I headed to the service corridor, where the sound of the band softened and the air smelled like onions and bleach and cake. The security guy frowned. "Ma'am, I'll be 1 second," I said and held up my phone. He hesitated. That was all I needed. I opened my banking app and scrolled to the owner portal. I watched the numbers settle into place like birds landing on a wire. I didn't have to press anything, not yet, but it helped to feel the weight of it in my hand. I took a breath. "Tell the manager to meet me at the kitchen door," I said. "Please." The security guy looked at my face and something in it made him nod. He tapped his radio. The manager came fast, breath sharp, smile sharp, eyes careful. He had trained with my coordinator. He knew what happens when a night goes wrong. "Is there a problem?" he asked. "There is," I said, "and I can fix it." He looked at the phone in my hand. He saw the portal. He saw a name he recognized at the top. The quiet name of my company. His face changed by a degree most people would miss. "I didn't." "Understood," he said. "What did he say?" the guard asked. The manager wiped his hands on his jacket in a small, thoughtful gesture. "We follow her lead," he said. "From this point on." I nodded once and walked back toward the light. End of Part 1 cliffhanger. I stepped into the ballroom with the manager at my shoulder, the security guard behind him, and the owner's portal open on my phone. The music stopped mid-song. Silence is a living thing in a crowded room. It leans in. It listens. It shows teeth. The band's sax player lifted his instrument halfway and then lowered it, confused. The singer turned to the soundboard. The guests slowed and curled toward the center like leaves in a whirlpool. The chandeliers hummed. My father stood tall at the head table. He had his public jaw on, tight but pleasant. "What is this?" he said. "Why is the music stopping? Who's in charge here?" The manager glanced at me for a half second and then spoke in a clear, even tone. "We're taking a quick pause to address a concern," he said. "Please enjoy your drinks. Excuse me?" My father barked. "I am paying for a seamless event." My throat tightened. Not from fear, but from the old reflex. The instinct to back down. To apologize. To disappear. My hands wanted to fold inside my sleeves. My shoulders wanted to make me smaller. I breathed in until the air found my spine. "Dad?" I said. The word felt strange in my mouth. "There's something you need to know." His eyes cut to me like knives. "You need to leave, now." My mother's mouth was a pale line. She touched her pearls with her fingertips as if they could calm the tremble in her neck. "I'm not leaving," I said, softer than a whisper, but shaped to carry. "We should step into the side room." He laughed, short and ugly. "I am not stepping anywhere with you," the manager spoke. "Sir, if we can take 5 minutes in the lounge, I can guarantee the night stays perfect." "Fine," my father snapped. 5 minutes. We went into the lounge, a small room with velvet chairs that swallowed you. The door clicked shut behind us. The manager stood near it, a quiet wall. My mother sat and folded her hands. My father stayed standing. "Say whatever you think will change this," he said, "but you are leaving." "I'm not leaving," I repeated, and lifted my phone. "I am the owner of the venue, and the catering company, and the DJ contract, through a separate LLC. I can prove every part of it." He laughed again, but it broke in the middle. "You?" He looked at the manager. "Is this true?" The manager did not look at him. He looked at me. "She is in the owner portal," he said calmly. "Authorization checks out." My mother made a small animal sound. "How?" I turned the screen. Names, balances, bookings, a list of vendors with green dots next to each, and a single toggle for tonight that read, "Master override on/off." My father's face did not change. He had practiced that face for years, but his left hand closed and opened once, slow. "You expect me to believe you did all this alone? With your little computer job?" "No," I said. "I did it with people who respect me, and because you taught me something important." I held his eyes. "You taught me to make a thing work without love. That's what you built with me. I just learned faster than you wanted." He took a step toward me. The manager moved slightly, a shadow that reminded him there were other eyes. "This is a party," my mother whispered. "This is not the place." "It became the place when he called me a beggar," I said. The word felt hot. It stuck to my tongue. I stayed quiet for 5 years. I made myself small for 5 years. I let you brag at every holiday about how your son Daniel was the only one who knew business. I let you pretend I was the disappointment. That ends tonight. My father's smile stretched thin. "You do not get to ruin this night for your mother." I shook my head. "I'm not ruining it. I'm taking back my place in it. Here are your choices." I kept my voice steady. 1, you apologize publicly for what you said. We continue. You get your perfect night. 2, you refuse. I call a staff break. The food pauses. The music pauses. The lights pause. The bar closes. I refund the guests their bar fees myself and post the reason on the venue's socials. I'll eat the loss to make the point. My mother's eyes widened. "You wouldn't." "Try me," I said softly. He pointed at the door. "You're bluffing." I looked at the manager. He nodded once, already tuned to what I was asking without words. He touched his radio. "Staff break. 2 minutes," he said. "Cold line hold, bar on pause. House lights to 50. The room on the other side of the door shifted. Voices rose. A few guests laughed, confused. Someone clapped in a rhythmic, joking way that made others join in. I waited. I could wait all night if I had to. I had waited my whole life. "You will not embarrass me," my father said, finally, low and deadly. "You have always been a problem, and now you want to make a show of it." I thought of all the nights I couldn't sleep. The nights I replayed his words. The nights the numbers danced like fish and the forms blurred and I forced myself to keep reading. I thought of the first time a chef called me boss, and meant it. I thought of the time a bride's mother gripped my hand and said, You saved us. And I nodded and said nothing. Apologize, I said. Or lose the night. He stared at me for a long time. He had never had to apologize to me. Not once. Not when I left home. Not when he called me a failure. Not when he told me I was nothing and would always be nothing. My mother's lips trembled. For a second I thought she'd speak. She did not. She stared at the carpet, tracing the dark pattern with her eyes as if it could open and swallow her. He turned to the manager. "We will continue," he said, each word chewed and swallowed. "My daughter is confused. Put the music back on." "No," I said. I felt the old fear rise and pass like a wave that did not knock me down this time. "Apologize first. Right now, on a microphone, in front of the people who heard you call me a beggar." He took one step closer, so near I could smell the cologne I used to smell on my coats when he hugged me years ago. "You don't command me," he said. "I built this family." "No," I said. "Mom did." And I did, and Daniel did a little when it looked good. "You built your voice." The manager cleared his throat, not to interrupt, but to put a hand on the moment so it didn't break. "Sir, we have a timeline," he said. "The main course will suffer if we stall too long." "Fine," my father spat. "I'll apologize. If that's what it takes to end this display." "Good," I said. "Let's go." We walked back out. The staff, bless them, had already reset. The bar lights glowed low. The band waited, fingers on strings, breathing lightly. Guests looked at each other with bright, hungry eyes. People love a story they can tell later. My father took the microphone. He smiled a smile that did not touch his eyes. "Friends," he said. A small misunderstanding interrupted the music. "I want to apologize." "For what?" I said from the floor, not loud but clear. The mic picked me up anyway. "Say the words." He blinked at me. The room hushed another degree. He swallowed. For calling my daughter a beggar." A few people gasped because they had not heard it clearly before. Now everyone heard. I nodded once. "Thank you," I said. It was not forgiveness. It was a transaction. The band started. The lights returned. But the night had shifted. The room had a new center of gravity. I could feel it in the way people watched me over their glasses, in the way whispers tilted toward me in a way like minnows. Daniel slid up beside me, voice low. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Ever think you might be the problem?" I faced him. "I'm keeping records," I said. "Like you taught me when we were kids. Remember? Who borrowed whose skateboard? Who broke whose window? You said facts matter." I agreed. He flushed, jaw tight. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said. "But not tonight." For a while the music did its job. The waiters danced between tables with plates like moons. Toasts rose and burst like bubbles. My father worked the room with that perfect glide of his. But there were cracks now. I watched as small things went wrong. A candle guttered and burned a lace edge. A guest spilled red wine on a pale dress and did not find anyone to blame. The cake leaned a fraction. My mother found me near the service door. "Why?" she said. The question was so pure it almost made me cry. "Why do this here?" "Because here is where it happened," I said. "Here is where he said it. Here is where everyone heard. He taught me the rules. Don't making a scene in private when the harm was public." Her eyes softened for a heartbeat. Then the mask slid back. "We should talk later," she whispered. "Alone. Will you look me in the eye then?" I asked. She flinched. "Don't be cruel." "I'm not," I said. "I'm asking." She pressed her lips together and slipped away. I did not follow. I felt both empty and heavy, like the air before a storm. Then the groomed calm I had built all night shook. The kitchen sent a message. A supplier had double billed us last week, and the draft refund had failed, leaving a temporary hold on one of the sub-accounts. It wasn't catastrophic, but it meant that the bonus dessert I had promised, my gift to the night, couldn't be released without my manual push. A small thing, unless you were already balancing 12 flames on 10 fingers. I swallowed. I stepped into the hallway with my phone. The owner portal asked for 2-factor authentication. I had it, but the code lagged. A dead zone. The one blot in the building. I walked fast, past the coat check, past the doors, into the corner of the lobby where the signal was clean. The minutes stretched. The code came. I entered it. The account blinked alive. The lock released. I breathed. When I looked up, My father was 10 feet away, watching me through the glass reflection. He had followed me. He had seen the portal. He had seen my hands steady. He smiled, slow and feral. "You think this makes you strong?" he murmured. "You think owning a room makes you own us?" I tucked the phone into my pocket. "No," I said. "It makes me own myself." He stepped closer. "Then why do you look like you're about to cry?" "Because I was..." "Not from fear. From the ache of the thing that was breaking and might never be rebuilt. From the weight of being right and still being sad. From the simple, stupid fact that I wanted a mother's hand at my back and a father's pride, and I knew I'd never get them clean." I blinked hard and breathed in the smell of floor polish and flowers. "Go back inside," I said. "Eat your dessert. Tell your story. What story is that?" he asked, mocking. "The one where you raised a beggar," I said, voice steady now. "Who bought your night?" End of part 2, cliffhanger. I turned and walked toward the ballroom, ready to push the final button that would change everything. I walked back into the ballroom with the weight of choice in my pocket. The band eased into a warm instrumental, like a throat clearing. Glasses clinked. Forks scraped plates, but the current under it all was sharp and electric. Eyes slid toward me. Away. Back again. This was never about the venue. It was about my voice, but the venue was the lever. I had built it for nights exactly like this. Nights where people used other people as props and called it family. The planning did not start when the invitation went out. It started years ago, the first time a vendor told me my father had argued a bill down to nothing because they should be grateful he brought them business. I kept that memory like a pebble in my shoe. Every step reminded me to keep moving. I learned the back end of events the way some people learn a language. Service corridors, loading docks, insurance writers, fire codes, the small, hard truths that rule big, soft dreams. I learned that power in a room is not the person at the microphone. It's the person who can pull the circuit breakers without anyone seeing. It's the person who knows where the backup generator is and who has the keys. People like my father lived in the front of the house. Smiles, speeches, handshakes held 1 second too long. I made myself a home behind the swinging doors. There, people spoke plainly. If the stove was broken, they said it. If a guest was rude, they said it. If tips were short, they said it with a tired, bitter accuracy that made me take notes. I promised myself I would not be the kind of owner who looked away. So I built my company in layers. Visible faces I trusted, and quiet controls only I touched. A coordinator with a spine of steel and soft eyes. A kitchen that ran like a heart. A security team trained to step in and step back with the same calm grace. Clauses in contracts that protected staff from harassment and guaranteed time and a half if a client caused a delay. NDAs where needed, yes, but also a clean paper trail that would stand in any light. The LLC had a plain name, Good Harbor Services. You would not notice it unless you wanted to. Under it, 3 sub-entities, each with its own accounts and manager, the venue, the catering, the entertainment. We banked at a credit union with a branch manager who once cried when I handed her a holiday card with a handwritten thank you, because nobody had ever done that. My father's event came through a planner my coordinator had known for years. That planner had a soft voice and a hard calendar. She handled the outward face, site visits, tasting menus, tented contingencies for weather, 1,000 small decisions that make a big night look effortless. When she brought me the binder with my family's names on it, I could have recused myself. I could have said conflict of interest, but I remembered that pebble. I remembered the bills my father had ground under his heel when I was a kid. I remembered my mother folding napkins while he raised his voice in the next room. I took the binder. I did not plan a public humiliation. That is the truth. I planned a boundary, a clean line that said, if you cross this, I will not pretend it didn't happen. But revenge is a word people use when justice finally shows its face. If they had treated me as human, this would have been a night with good food and too many speeches and an envelope at the end of the night with a generous tip. Instead, my father crafted a stage. He called me a beggar into a microphone made of gossip and pride. He set the lights. He invited witnesses. He made the first move. I made the last. My coordinator and I had built a playbook for difficult clients. We called it the rain plan. It was labeled like weather because that's what bad behavior is. It rolls in, shifts the air, and if you're prepared, you can protect everyone under the tent. The RAIN plan had 3 stages: quiet fix, public pause, hard stop. Each had a list of steps. Each had scripts because when the air crackles, you forget your words. Quiet fix, redirect the guest of concern. Offer water. Use the word timeline because people respect schedules more than feelings. Move staff out of the line of fire. Tighten service. Keep the room fed. Hungry rooms grow teeth. Public pause. Lower the music. Dim lights slightly. Announce a quick check-in so the kitchen can reset for quality. This tells guests nothing and everything. We are in control. You are safe. Hard stop. Only if a line is crossed. Verbal abuse that won't quit. Physical contact. Refusal to comply with fire code. Non-payment. In hard stop, we protect staff first. We lock down alcohol, bring lights up, and call for a client representative not on the floor. Usually the planner, or the person who signed the contract. What my father didn't know was that every contract had an anti-abuse clause. Not some performative line taped to a staff break room, a clause with teeth. If a client demeaned staff or any guest protected under law, we were obliged to pause and seek resolution. We'd never had to use it publicly. I prayed we wouldn't tonight, but I had sharpened it for years for a reason. When security touched my arm, I remembered all of that at once. The pebble, the RAIN plan, the promise to my younger self who hid in laundry rooms. I had 3 choices. I took the one that was cleanest and hardest. I would make him choose in the light. I moved through the rest of the night like a surgeon with gloved hands. I checked the cold line and hotline. I checked the band's set list. I checked the dessert trays for the special order my mother had requested. 2 gluten-free, 3 without nuts, 1 dairy-free. I checked that the gratuity envelopes were stuffed, because I had put my name on those tips, and I would not let them be short by a single $1. Then I reviewed the last lever I had never pulled, the master override. It was not dramatic. It was 1 button in an owner portal that told all 3 sub-entities to pivot, to pause service, to direct questions to me, to put staff on break while still paying them. It was for fires and floods and false bomb threats. It was for the night the power grid failed, and we fed the whole room by candlelight because the kitchen had gas. It was never meant to be for my family. I looked across the ballroom at my father laughing with a cluster of men who had made him feel big his whole life. I looked at my mother, tracing the rim of her glass with her finger. I looked at Daniel, whispering to a cousin with a fast, mean little grin. I could end this with 1 tap, but I wanted the line to be clear and the world to see it without me pointing. So I waited for the part of the program when the MC would thank our generous host. In the script delivered to me, that name was my father's. I had not changed the print. I do not play with other people's money, but I had added a second line to the teleprompter for when the thank you ended. A line no one had read because it sat under a permission only I could grant. The manager caught my gaze and tilted his head. "Are we going?" The smallest nod. The MC lifted his glass. "A huge thank you to our host for this incredible night." He looked at the prompter. "To Mr. S." My father raised his hand a fraction, ready for the small applause his ego needed to breathe. The manager tapped the iPad. The second line unlocked. "And to Good Harbor Services." The MC continued smoothly. "For sponsoring all vendor costs tonight as a community give-back." The room shifted. People clapped out of habit. A few looked puzzled. My father's smile froze in place. Community give-back? Sponsored vendor costs? He hadn't sponsored anything. He glanced at the planner, who looked at the manager, who looked at me. The MC turned, reading. "And to the owner of Good Harbor Services." I felt time slow. "Jenna." My name was a match dropped in dry grass. Murmur. Chairs creaked. A fork fell with a bright, shocked ring. I did not move. I did not smile. I let the sound roll over me. Eyes found me and stuck. The people who knew me from work straightened with little proud looks. The ones who knew me from childhood blinked as if the light hurt. My father's jaw worked once. Twice. "What stunt is this?" He hissed at the manager. "No stunt," the manager said gently. "Accurate credit." Daniel's face did a curious thing. Anger first, then a flicker of calculation, then a quick, shallow laugh. "Okay," he said too loudly. "Guess the beggar found a wallet." The laughter that followed was not with him. It was at him. He heard the difference. His eyes cut to mine, bright and hard. My mother put her hand on the table as if to steady herself. She looked at me. Really looked at me, not at my outline in a room she wanted to be perfect. At me. And for a second, I saw a young version of her. 20, maybe, with hair in her eyes, and a soft mouth and 1,000 possible lives. Then the years walked back over her face and she lifted her chin. The MC, bless him, decided to move along. And now, a surprise presentation. He turned toward the screens that had been looping a photo montage of my father's career. The loop paused. A new slide appeared. Vendor appreciation, paid in full. Then faces. Our dishwasher with her arms in soapy water, grinning. The line cook with a paper hat and a thumbs up. The bandleader tuning his guitar. My coordinator, camera shy and fierce, almost smiling. Each face had a first name only and a line beneath, tonight's bonus. Pat. I had loaded the numbers during that long afternoon when I'd almost fallen asleep at my desk. They weren't small. They weren't charity. They were what the work deserved when a client burned staff with words. The room made a low, surprised sound, like an animal turning its head. My father's eyes went flat. He whispered to the MC, to the planner, to the manager, words like control and unauthorized and my event. But the machine I had built was already moving, smooth and inevitable. Tips envelopes sealed, vendor transfers queued, staff protected, apology recorded, and one last piece. Waiting, humming, like a final chord held before it lands. End of part 3. Cliffhanger. The house lights dimmed to that perfect glow people use to make promises. I stepped to the mic. "Before dessert," I said, "I have one final toast." And on my phone, the master override waited for my fingertip. I did not raise my voice. The microphone made the quiet strong. "Good evening," I said. "Some of you know me. Some of you knew me before I learned to be quiet. Tonight I want to keep one promise, to myself and to everyone who works behind the scenes." I looked toward the kitchen doors where a line cook peered out with flour on his sleeve. He ducked when our eyes met, shy and pleased. I looked at the band. The drummer twirled a stick in slow circles, waiting to land. "My father called me a beggar tonight," I said. The room stiffened. There is a point where truth is sharp enough to hurt and clean enough to heal. He said it in front of you. He asked security to remove me. The staff, following training, paused the night. I offered a choice. He apologized. I accept that, and because this happened in public, we will close it the same way, with an accounting. I nodded to the manager. He tapped the iPad. Numbers appeared on the screens, simple and clear. Venue fee, paid by Good Harbor. Catering, paid by Good Harbor. Band, paid by Good Harbor. Bar, paid by Good Harbor. Security, paid by Good Harbor. Staff bonuses triggered, a soft buzz rose. Someone clapped once, stopped, embarrassed, then clapped again when others joined. I lifted a hand and the sound quieted. I held the moment the way you hold a heavy bowl, steady and careful. "I do not say this to show off," I said. "Money is not the point. Control is not the point. Respect is the point. Work is the point. Names matter. Credit matters. Safety matters. So tonight, because a line was crossed, I am drawing one back." I looked at my father. He stood with his hands behind his back like a man in a portrait. "Dad," I said. The word was hard, then easier. "You have always been loud. I have always been small. Tonight I am not small. I am the owner of this room, and I love this room. The way it feeds people, and holds them, and gives them nights to remember. I won't let anyone make it unsafe. Not even you." He smiled like someone chewing ice. "You're making a fool of yourself," he said. But the mic was not in his hand. I could have pushed the master override and shut the night down. I could have turned the house lights up to daylight and walked every vendor out with full pay and left my family in a bright, empty room with their pride for company. The part of me that remembered the laundry room girl wanted that. The part that had slept 3 hours a night and signed every form wanted the clean cut. Instead, I moved toward the kinder version of justice I had promised myself when I started this work. I would not punish the room. I would not take a couple's anniversary dance from them because my father needed a mirror. I would hold both truths, that some people hurt others, and that a night can still be beautiful around them. So here is what will happen, I said. We will serve dessert. We will dance. We will tip our staff and thank them by name. We will celebrate. And then, before we go home, we will change one thing. I tapped the phone. The master override did not end the night. It redirected the end-of-night credit. Where the program said, hosted by Mr. S., our screens now read, hosted by Good Harbor Services, in honor of the staff who make nights possible. At the bottom, a line, in gratitude to the community that taught us to work hard and be kind. My father laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. You think changing a line on a screen changes anything? No, I said. The apology did. The room breathed out as if someone had opened a window. The band picked up a soft glide. Servers re-emerged with trays of small, perfect things. A child ran past with a frosting smile. The first bite of dessert is a kind of truce. Sweetness first, then sense. Daniel shouldered up beside me again, voice low. You made your point, he said. Now step back before you look pathetic. Brother, I said, surprised at the softness in my voice. I hope you never have to learn how much it hurts to stand up this way. He stared at me as if he'd never seen me before. You're not special, he said, but the words lacked bite. Neither are you, I said gently. That's the point. We're the same. We just made different choices. He walked away, looking over his shoulder once, twice, like someone afraid of missing a step. My mother approached. She had a small plate with 2 desserts, one she knew I liked when I was a kid. She had not carried me a plate in years. She stopped 2 feet away, as if an invisible edge ran between us. For you, she said, and her voice wobbled. I took the plate. My hands were steady now. Thank you, I said. The mousse tasted like a memory kept cold too long and still good. I should have said something, she whispered. When he said that, I should have... She pressed her lips together, swallowed. I'm sorry, Jenna. A hot, bright ache opened under my ribs. I had wanted this sentence since I was 13. Thank you, I said again, because sometimes that is all you can say without falling apart in front of people who would use the pieces to decorate their stories. I don't know how to fix him, she said. You can't, I said. You can fix you. She nodded, a small, hard movement like a decision. She touched my forearm with 2 fingers, brief and careful, and slipped back into the room. For the next hour, the night was... good. It was a word that doesn't sound like much unless you've lived without it. People danced. The band's singer loosened his tie and hit a note that made the room cheer. The kitchen sent out a staff tray, and the servers took turns grabbing bites between tables because we do not let our people go hungry on our watch. My father drank less than usual. He smiled mechanically. He kept his hands behind his back like a soldier at ease. Then came the final toast. The MC invited my father to close the night. He was not a man to turn down a microphone. He took it with a politician's poise. Friends, he said, and the room obeyed. Tonight has been eventful, a shallow laugh. But we end as family. I want to thank my team for a flawless evening. He looked at the staff. He did not look at me. My hand tightened around the phone and I told it to let go. This was not my moment. I had had mine. Justice is not a compulsion. It's a practice. You stop when the line is clear. Also, he said after a small pause, my daughter has been part of tonight in a way I didn't expect. He swallowed and the microphone caught it. So, thank you. The words were precise and empty, but they were words. I took them. I put them in the drawer where I keep small, true things. I will not pretend they weigh what I wish they did. When the music rose again, the night moved toward its end. Guests collected coats. The band played one more song that felt like driving home. The staff did that quiet ballet of cleanup. I stood in the service corridor and watched my people move. I felt the kind of tired that is clean and earned, the kind that will let you sleep. As the last guest left, my father appeared in the doorway, silhouette black against bright lobby light. He did not step into the service hall. He would not. He looked at me from that clean line between his world and mine. You always had a flair for drama, he said. I learned from the best, I said. He snorted. You think you've won. I thought of the dishwasher's bonus hitting her account before she got to the bus stop. I thought of my coordinator, counting out tips in a quiet office, eyebrows drawn, mouth soft. Because numbers are a language of care when you use them right. I thought of my mother bringing me dessert on a small plate like a fragile bridge. I'm not playing your game, I said. I built my own. He nodded once, a motion so slight it could have been a tick. We'll see how long it lasts. Long enough, I said. He left. His shoes made that expensive sound on tile that used to make me small. It didn't now. I walked back into the ballroom, empty except for our people. Someone had dimmed the chandeliers to a warm sigh. The smell of lemon cleaner had begun to mask the smell of sugar and sweat. I pressed the last button in the portal. Transfers. Release. The screen blinked green. Paid. 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 Good night, boss, the manager said, not like an employee to a superior, but like a person to another person who had held the line. Good night, I said. My voice did not shake. My hands did not shake. The beggar my father tried to script had left the room before the first course. Fallout came in ripples over the next weeks. A cousin texted a long message about tone and family unity. I did not reply. An aunt called to tell me I had embarrassed my mother. My mother called the next day to tell me she had asked my aunt not to call again. Daniel sent 3 words. You were cruel. I sent 3 back. You were silent. But there were other ripples. A bride's father who had once stiffed a bartender sent a letter with a check and an apology. A competitor's cook called to ask if we were hiring. She said, I heard you run a humane kitchen. A stranger left a review that said, I felt safe there. And if you don't know why that is the highest praise, you have been fortunate. Staff started staying through the season instead of burning out by July. People looked me in the eye. You could say I took revenge. Fine. But what I took, finally and fully, was stewardship. I took the night back from a man who used it to make himself tall. I gave it to the hands that set tables and stirred sauces and carried trays and tuned guitars and moved lighting gels until the room glowed like a promise kept. End of part 4. As the sun edged the sky the next morning, I logged into the owner. Portal one last time, not to count anything but to look at names. Then I closed the app and slept, deep, full, and dreamless, for the first time in years. There is a superstition in event work that the room remembers. If you treat it well, it treats you kindly. An outlet that doesn't spark, a souffle that doesn't fall, a storm that passes 10 minutes before load-in. I don't know if that's true, but I know people remember, and that is enough. My father will tell his version of the night for the rest of his life. In his story, I embarrassed him. I made a scene. I was ungrateful. That's fine. I am done asking his story to hold me kindly. In my story, I learned to stop shrinking. I learned that apology is a kind of currency, and some people won't spend it even when the cost is small. I learned that silence is not virtue when it keeps harm comfortable. I learned to change the room without burning it down. When I think of that night now, I don't see his face first. I see the dishwashers. She held up her phone at the bus stop and said, "It's already there." I see my mother's hand shaking a little as she balanced a dessert plate. I see the manager's nod, small and sure. I see the band leader counting the band in after the apology, steady as a second heartbeat. I see my own hands, finally still. Justice didn't feel like a shout. It felt like balance. It felt like making the floor level under everyone's feet. It felt like saying my name into a microphone and hearing it ring true in a room that could hold it. I'm Jenna from Denver, and this was the night I refused to be small. If this story made you breathe deeper, if it reminded you that boundaries are love in action, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more true revenge stories told with care. We stand up together. one quiet, steady line at a time.